2020, what an epic year. The beginning not only of a new year, but a new decade. And I think it's always fascinating how we humans, we love those transitions. They always give us just a little bit of hope that this year could be different. How many of you have already thought that to yourself? This year it's going to be different. And you don't want to remember you said that in 2019 and that you said that in 2018, that you've said that a few times along the way. But it's okay because this year it's not like last year. It's not like when you said it last year. This year it's different. But I can tell you that if you want this year to be different, you have to do something different. And so if we're going to step into the future that we long for, we have to begin to ask the question, how in the world can I ever create a new future if I don't find a way to create a new me? I love decades. Every time I've gotten older, I love getting older. Yeah, there are people who try to hide it, people who, they get rid of the wrinkles and get rid of the gray, and not me. I earned every wrinkle. I am proud of every wrinkle. And I mean, there are people in LA, they can't even express emotions because they have no wrinkles left, and it's just not natural. See, I want you to know that every wrinkle came from laughter or from tears. It came from astonishment or distress. Every tear, every wrinkle, every mark, every scar came through an experience of life. And my wife, Kim, she's always trying to find a way to get me to shave, and she'll always say things like, wow, your beard is white. Wow, you look old when you have a beard. And I always just respond, I am old. And that's why I look old. And I never felt overwhelmed by a decade, but I gotta tell you, 61, it kind of kicked me to the curb. This has been a tough year. I started feeling it. I started wondering, wow, I wonder if this is the year where I start really deteriorating at a rapid rate. And then one year, everyone says, wow, remember last year? And I could attribute to a lot of things, injuries because of basketball or walking. Or maybe the respiratory stuff I've been fighting with because all of you are diseased and you keep getting me sick. So stop hugging me, all right? I love you. Let's just keep it at a distance if you're not doing well. And so the breathing is kind of slowing me down, and I can just feel myself. You just feel like you're dragging into the future. But then I went to get my eye exam. I haven't done that in a while, and I got a notice saying, you haven't had an eye exam in several years, and it's a part of your insurance, you probably should come. And so I thought, okay, I'll go get an eye exam. And I don't like it because I don't like tests. And they always give you this exam, and I'm always afraid I'm gonna fail it. And you know which one I'm talking about, the one with all the lenses? Yeah. It makes you so nervous. Okay, just tell me, is this clear or is this clear? I don't know. Is this one clear or this? I think left, this one. And she doesn't stop. And she go, is this one clear or this one? I go, I don't know. What do you think? And she's like, no, this is all up to you. And I go, I know, but I make most of my decisions in cooperation with other people. Can you help me? And I just keep knowing I'm going to get it wrong, and then I'm going to get glasses where the world becomes blurrier, not clear. But then when we finished, she started asking me some strange questions. I mean, I thought, personal questions. Do you struggle with high blood pressure? And I said, no, I have low blood pressure. And she goes, okay. And, well, do you have a history of diabetes? And I'm like, diabetes? What does that have to do with an ophthalmologist? I mean, you're asking kind of invasive questions. I mean, you started asking me about my marriage and, I said, no, I don't have any history of diabetes. And she just kept asking me questions. I said, why are you asking me all these questions? She says, well, your eyesight has improved. And that's kind of unusual. And so I thought maybe if you had diabetes or some other physical condition, it would explain why it was worse in the past and why it's better now. And what I wanted to say was 2019 was a tough year. I went through a lot. I faced some huge challenges, some incredible obstacles, had some pretty brilliant failures. And what happened during that year is I got up. I just kept getting up. And after that year, I see so much clearer now. It's affected everything. It's changed my sight. See, if you're going to create a new you, you're going to have to change the way you see the world around you, the way you see reality, the way you see yourself, the way you see life, and you're going to need some new lenses. So I want to talk to you just for a few moments about optics. I think that's kind of an interesting word. Optics are the branch of physical science that deals with the properties and phenomenon of both visible and invisible light, and with vision. I think this is such an interesting description, that optics are dealing with the arena of both visible and invisible light when it comes to vision. See, now some of us, our optics are so bad, we don't even see the things that are visible. Now, you can know if you're not seeing the things that are visible if you keep making mistakes and your friends keep asking you, what were you thinking? See, if everyone else knew that was a bad choice except for you, you're not even seeing the visible. But sometimes we see the visible, it's the invisible, the nuances of those things that no one seems to be able to see that really throw us off. What if we could step into a level of optics that we could see both the visible and the invisible that was all around us? There was a moment in the life of Jesus where they brought a blind man to him. And it's this fascinating moment because there's a journey towards sight that I think relates to our own journey. In Mark chapter 8, verse 22, it says, and they came to Bethsaida, and some people brought a blind man and begged Jesus to touch him. He took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. When he had spit on the man's eyes, and by the way, that's disturbing to me. When he had spit on the man's eyes and put his hands on him, Jesus said, do you see anything? He looked up and said, I see people. They look like trees walking around. Once more, Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes. Then his eyes were opened. His sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. I want to talk to you for a few moments about 3 lenses that will change your optics, that will transform your ability to see clearly the future that is awaiting you. And I've seen this over and over again, that the spectrum between how we engage with these particular lenses are almost predictive to whether this year will be better than last year, whether this year will be different than last year, whether you will step into not only a new life and a new future, but a new you. Because anything new you want in your life begins with a new you. But so oftentimes we don't know how to change that part of us that we become so comfortable with because we are the old us. And the new us is something we're trying to step into. The old us is something we have been standing in. It's hard to gain a new approach towards seeing. But the first lens that I want you to step into this year is optimism. I know it may seem sort of simplistic, but optimism will change the way you see reality. And a lot of times when you're a person of faith, you think you shouldn't talk about being optimistic. You should only talk about faith. But I know a lot of people who have faith that are not very optimistic. I don't understand how that happens, but it's just true. And I think the reason is because a lot of us have faith, but faith is more of a noun. Your faith is like a belief. You have faith in God. You have faith in Jesus. You have faith in the Bible. You have faith in your faith. But it's a noun, it's a belief system, and that faith anchors you, it does not elevate you. And I think it's so odd that so many times people say, I'm a person of faith, but they're pessimistic. How in the world can you live by faith and be cynical or pessimistic? But we pull it off, and we do it really, really well. Oh, I believe in God. Man, the world is just falling apart. We have no hope. Jesus is our hope. Which one is it? And now, I have this wonderful relationship with my wife, Kim, and we kind of naturally come at this differently, and I'm a natural optimist. I think I'm genetically an optimist. And that frustrates Kim, because a lot of times she feels like I'm not seeing the problems clearly. So she feels it's her responsibility to make sure I see the problems clearly. And last night, before we went to bed, I was in the back writing, and she was going to bed, so I thought I need to go say goodnight to her before she goes to sleep. So I ran back inside the house, and and sat down by the bed and began to have a conversation with her. And suddenly, you ever have one of those moments where you just could see everything that was going wrong? But she had one of those moments right before she went to sleep. And she started telling me everything that was going wrong and all the problems we were going to face the next day. And I had just been researching optimism. I said, honey, I don't know if you're aware of this, but if you choose to be optimistic, you will have a 35% chance to live a longer life. And she looked at me, she goes, great, now the facts are going against me. I go, no, that's not what I mean. What I mean is you could choose to be optimistic, not die pessimistic. And we both started laughing uncontrollably. Because sometimes, if you're not careful, pessimism feels like realism. And you don't think you're being pessimistic. You just think you're just looking at reality. And everyone else has this false view of the world. But optimism is not about ignoring problems. Optimism is not about pretending everything's going to be okay. In fact, I think pessimists, even though they say everything's going to go bad, are always shocked when it goes bad. The reason I know that is because pessimists get angry when things go bad. I told you. I knew that's what's going to happen. Well, if you knew, why didn't you prepare? It's because pessimism is more than just believing that bad is going to happen. Pessimism is a posture that actually ensures that the worst scenario happens. And so you do not make the choices that could change the worst possible future. Optimists have this really curious kind of posture toward life. And by the way, it is true that if you choose to live an optimistic life, you have a 35% chance of living a longer life and wanting to be alive. You have a 35% chance of being healthier, of being physically healthier, of being mentally healthier, of living a more full and whole life. So even if optimists are wrong, they come out ahead because of the way they see life. But one of the things that's interesting is that optimists have this peculiar relationship to the future. See, optimists are not shocked when things go bad. It's not like, what happened? I thought everything's gonna work out. No, optimists know that things are gonna go bad, sometimes. They know there are gonna be problems. They know there are gonna be obstacles. It's not a denial of the difficulties of life. Optimists simply believe that all those problems are temporary. And in some ways, even have a positive relationship with the problems. A problem is just an opportunity to bring a solution. An obstacle is just an opportunity to elevate your game. A challenge is just your chance to prove what you're made of. So optimists see problems, but they don't see them as permanent. I wonder if you're here and the reason your life isn't moving forward is that you don't believe that your future can be different than your past. Because you have a pessimistic, cynical view of the future. Even in this moment when this man's friends bring him to Jesus and ask Jesus to touch him, there's this posture that says life can be better, that something can change. Now, this moment required an extraordinary intervention from Jesus, but I wonder how many times in our life we just accept this is the way life is going to be. Nothing's going to change, and there's nothing I can do about it, which, by the way, is the second dynamic of optimists. Optimists actually believe they have the power to change their fate. They have the power to make something good happen, to create the future they long for. Now, you may think that's actually delusional. Are you out of your mind? You cannot create the life you want. Don't tell an optimist because they're not going to listen to you anyway. And they're going to be way too busy creating the life they want. Now, what if you entered 2020, entered this new decade with a lens of optimism? I am going to believe that every problem is the material from which I'm going to create a better future. I'm going to believe that inside of me there is the gifting, the talent, the intelligence, the passion, the determination, the strength to overcome whatever I'm going to face and do something extraordinary in the middle of life's most difficult moments. And if you choose optimism, then you might have to begin to negotiate. Where does faith fit in? See, because if optimism is this conviction that problems are positive, that problems are positive, let me say that again. So instead of being angry when you are faced with a problem, be thankful that you have an opportunity to do something amazing. But there are times in your life where you're just in a moment where it just feels so much bigger than you. Hey, have you ever, I know this is a hard room to ask, but have you ever just come to the realization you need people? And I know we're supposed to be able to do this on our own, right? But if you're actually pursuing a life that is worthy of your life, you're gonna need people. And you're gonna come to a place in your life, you're gonna realize, wow, this is a problem and I need some help. One of the most difficult things in the world is to admit we need help even to accomplish our own destiny, our own dreams, our own future. And that's the wonder of faith. See, optimism is believing that God has placed in you everything you need to live the life he created you to live. But faith is knowing that in those moments where you realize that life is bigger than you, and you've run out of strength, and you feel as if you can't take one more step, that there's a God who's there with you. And he's gonna pick you up and carry you forward. He's never gonna let you down. He's never gonna abandon you. There's this powerful force when you live a life of optimism that's fueled by faith. Nothing can stop you. I want to step into 2020 with a lens of optimism. I'm just going to believe this is going to be the greatest year of my life. I'm going to believe that things are going to change that I need to change. I mean, I just have already my inner list. I'm going to believe that I'm going to redefine what 61 looks like, and it's just going to create the momentum to 70. How are you going to see your life and the world around you? Optimism, I think, is one of the most critical lenses for transforming the way you see and how you live. The second is opportunity. How you relate to problems, that's the lens of optimism. But how you relate to inconvenience, to interruptions, that's the lens of opportunity. Hey, have you ever had your life all planned out, or at least your day? And your day's all planned out, and you knew exactly what you're gonna do. Or maybe you have a month planned out, or somebody the whole year. You already have 2020 nailed down. It's on your calendar, of course. See, I think one of the great challenges in life is that everything would work out exactly the way you wanted it to if people didn't get in your way. But they do. Have you ever noticed that every time you meet a human being, they start interrupting your life? I mean, I know people are wonderful, humans are great, wonderful species, I'm really for them. But have you ever noticed that it feels a lot of times that humans are one of the greatest obstacles to keeping you from achieving your greatness? And what they do is they create problems in your life, they create obstacles in your life, and they create interruptions in your life. And how you relate to interruptions is how you actually engage opportunity. You ever been angry because you felt like God is unfair? That he gives other people more opportunities than he gives you? It's one of those crazy things. Sometimes it just feels like God just likes some people more than other people. It just gives them one opportunity after another opportunity after another opportunity. And when you see people with great success, you think they had so many opportunities. But the reality is when you go back and read their stories, you realize before there was all that success, it looked like they were so limited in their opportunities. They took the most unlikely opportunity and stepped through it. And when they stepped through it, they found more opportunities and more opportunities and more opportunities. So this year, if you'll choose the lens of opportunity, it will change the way you relate to interruptions. So every time you get interrupted, every time you get inconvenienced, that's the word. Every time you get inconvenienced, what you see as an opportunity. Here, Jesus is being inconvenienced by a bunch of people who have a friend who's blind. And Jesus could have said, look, I got things to do. I have big things in store. I mean, Jesus had a huge agenda. He didn't need to be interrupted by the problems of one person. And yet, the story of Jesus has texture and beauty because of every interruption that came into his life. What if you began to see all the interruptions and all the inconveniences as the doorway to opportunity in your life? You know, one of the funny things, we've been in this building for 10 years, and I still don't have a key. I've never had a key. And now they have codes. I don't even know the codes. There are people who run in front of me putting the code in, because not because I need them, well, I do. Because I don't know the code. And they're always changing the code, so I can't get in. But it's so different in my house. We've been living in our house for 10 years. I still don't have a key. And what's crazy to me is that we have so many people come to the house because Kim has so many people over, so many people from Mosaic who volunteer and help her out and do all this global stuff around the world. And they just unlock our door and walk in. And I usually meet them when they're in my living room. I go, how did you get in? I go, Kim gave me a key. I'm like, there are people all over Mosaic with keys to my house. But I don't have a key to my house. And yet I have all these rogue keys. You know what I'm talking about? Do you have, any of you have like rogue keys? Keys that you can't throw away because you know one day you're going to discover what door they open? But you have no idea why I have keys. I have some really epic looking keys, some ancient looking keys. And I can't throw them away because they look so important. I keep thinking one day I'm going to be standing at that door. And I'm going to be upset because I can't get in because I threw away that key, so I can't throw them away. I have all these keys all over the place. And what's really frustrating, have you ever noticed that sometimes keys all look alike, but they're just a little bit different? Because when you go and remake keys, you realize it's just a slight little variation that determines whether it unlocks your door, which is another frustration when they make keys that are supposed to unlock your door, but they just miss it by a little and it doesn't work. See, I think that the great dilemma with opportunities is that we want to be able just to walk those opportunities through. But we're like a key that didn't get carved out just right. You ever heard that old saying about trying to put, a square peg in a round hole? You see, the opportunities God has for you are like round holes. And if you're still a square peg, you're not going to make it through the round hole. Because if you want to step into new opportunities, then you need to become a new you. Because the best opportunity you have right now is to become a better human being. Right now, the best opportunity you have right now is to become the person that God created you to be. And is it possible that your essence, your character is actually the key that opens up all those opportunities? We want God to walk around with all these keys and go, I got you, I got you, I got you. But God doesn't walk around with a bunch of keys. He makes you the key. And then when you're shaped for that moment, you walk right through that door into that opportunity. So maybe this year we'll start looking at obstacles and challenges and problems. And go, oh, something good is going to happen because we have a lens of optimism. And when we're inconvenienced, instead of getting frustrated and angry and irritated, you're messing up my life, you're messing up my day, you're posturing me for failure because you're interrupting my schedule. See it as opportunity knocking at your door. And if your character is aligned properly with humility and with gratitude, you'll walk through those doors. I think sometimes we get confused. We think we only step through opportunity when we're planned. But it's not that way. You cannot plan for the life God has for you. You can only prepare for it. And as you become the person God created you to be, you will walk through those doors of opportunity so naturally. You will think they were keyless the entire time. But there's a third lens, and I think it's the most difficult one. Because optimism and opportunity, they can really posture you in a positive way, but the third one is offense. See, the third lens that will change the way you see everything, it will transform your optics, is offense. If you're here and you're easily offended, you are a person who struggles to see the future clearly. Because offense will blur your sight more than anything. Let's go back to this story for a moment. It says that these people brought this blind man to Jesus to touch him, and it says that Jesus took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the village. And this says, and when he had spit on the man's eyes. Let me just stop here for a moment and say, that just feels wrong, okay? Like, I'm not feeling that, okay? And I don't think anyone here, I hope there's nobody weird enough to go, oh, that's how Jesus did it. That's what I should do, okay? Because there's always one person so weird that says, oh, you see, it's in the Bible, okay? And I want to be very, very clear. Don't spit on people, okay? But here it says that Jesus spit on the man's eyes. And there's just something really weird about spit. I just got to tell you, I don't know if you know this, but right now, your mouth is full of spit. I mean, it's your spit, so you're okay with it. But just think about it for a moment. You're swallowing your own spit. Just have a moment. You thirsty? All right. You see, this is only bothering you because I'm pointing it out. Because you're swallowing your spit all the time. But if you spit out your spit and put it in a glass, see, you would not want to drink your own spit. All the money in the world would not motivate me to swallow my spit. Once it's out, it's not mine. It's like it's something else. And that's how I feel about my spit. I can't even begin to tell you how I feel about yours. And I love reading historians that try to make sense of this. Theologians. Well, when Jesus spat, they don't call it spit, they call it spittle, because it sounds more epic. The spittle of Jesus was not like human spittle. It was the spittle of God. It just spit, okay? You can write about it any way you want, because if you believe in Jesus, it says that Jesus is fully God and fully man. And they try to write about Jesus saying, oh, this is holy spit. There's no such thing as holy spit, okay? See, God's not spitting. Jesus was spitting. Jesus' spit was the human side of Jesus. And spit is spit. And when you're a blind guy, you're blind, but you're not deaf. In fact, you're really good at listening. And you're hearing Jesus spit, and then moving towards you. And you can't run. Then he puts the spit on the man's eyes, and he also has a keen sense of touch and feel. So he feels the spit. And then Jesus asks him, do you see anything? He should have asked him, do you feel anything? He says, do you see anything? And he says, I see a lot of spit. And it says he looked up and he says, I see people. I see men walking like trees. He had partial sight. Is it possible that you've been touched by God but still do not see clearly? That you've had an encounter with Jesus but you still aren't seeing your life clearly, the future clearly, the world clearly? Is it possible that you see the equivalent of people walking around like trees, that life is a blur to you? And that's why you feel so lost and confused. Once more, Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes. And then it says, then his eyes were opened, his sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. What if he had walked away after the first time Jesus touched him? What if he had walked away offended by Jesus? Who do you think you are spitting on my face? God? That probably is the first option. He could have walked away with anger and offense. See, I think there are many people, maybe even here, who have become offended by God because God did not come through the way you thought he should come through. There's some of you who have lived with an offense toward God because you prayed and asked and you didn't get an answer or a response, and you have been angry because you've been walking around half blind and you walked away before God was finished with you. See, we want God to be a magician. We want him to do his magic trick and change everything instantly. But God is a God of relationship. And I want you to know, most of the work that God does is not instantaneous. It is a process of relationship where God has to touch you over and over again. Because God's desire for you is intimacy, not magic. And Jesus touched him again and opened his eyes. He had to stay in. And I want to challenge you, some of you who have been offended by God, to lean back in and trust God that he has not abandoned you. He has not let you down. He has not fallen short. You just need to trust him through the process. But most of us are offended with each other. Do you have a friend who's always offended? Or a parent? Or are you the person who's always offended? You know what I'm talking about? You're just always mad. It's people are on eggshells around you because they know if they get it wrong, if they say it wrong, if they do it wrong, you're going to be mad. Some of you live with the posture of, you're going to offend me, it's just a question of when. And I want you to realize that if you're a person who's easily offended, you cannot step into the future that God created you to live. Because offense will blind you like nothing else. And there's something dynamic about offense, and I just want to highlight them. Now, there's a saying in sports, by the way, and it says the best defense is a good offense. But really, in this case, the best defense or the best defense is no offense. Like, the best way to protect your future is to refuse to be offended by people. And someone came up to me this morning after I talked about this and said, it's easy for you to say, because you've never had any pain, or you have never really experienced that level of offense. And they were really upset with me. And one of the things I know in life is that if you're a person who carries offense, you do not believe anyone else has experienced more pain than you. And you have to understand that offense is not fair. Not everyone here goes through the same level of pain. But all of us will have to face whatever pain we've gone through and decide what kind of impact or effect or lasting result it will have in us. See, people who live offended are easily defeated. People who are offended are easily offended. See, when you are constantly offended by other people, you're so fragile that failure destroys you. And you don't even connect the dots that your inability to release offense is what is causing in you an inability to capture your dreams. If you're here and you're always offended, I can tell you, you're emotionally and psychologically more fragile than a person who cannot be offended. Second thing is that people who are offended actually limit their own capacity. See, if you are constantly offended, you're easily defeated, but you're also sadly limited in your own capacity. When you are offended, you actually lose your ability to have a greater impact on the world. It's an odd thing. But when you live in offense, you actually begin to live in fear because you're afraid someone else is going to hurt you. Because you remember what they did. You never forget it. And have you ever had a friend that's always offended? You know what you discover? You cannot go deep with that person. If you're here and you struggle with offense, you are here and you're still longing for meaningful friendships in your life because your inability to forgive limits your capacity for intimacy and friendship. Offense limits your capacity to be fully alive. Offense limits your capacity to be fully trusted. Offense limits your capacity to fully trust another human being. Offense limits your capacity to create your future. And, by the way, offense makes it impossible not only to move to deep intimacy in your life, but it makes it difficult to see the potential in other people. When you live a life of offense, you do not trust new people. Are you one of those people who says, I don't trust people? Do you begin with, I don't trust you, you have to earn my trust? You're a person who struggles with offense. See, when you let go of offense, you are now free to trust new people. And there's something so liberating, because by the way, your best future cannot be accomplished alone. You're gonna need people. And if you want the same future that you had in the past, then keep the same people that you have in the past. But if you want a different kind of future, you need new relationships. See, if you want a different you need to find a new community of people. And if you're not willing to trust new people, you will not become a new you, because the only people who get close to you are the ones who know the old you. I don't have a lot of superpowers, but one of them is that I just don't hold bitterness. I'm not even sure how it happened. I think I just got hurt so many times growing up that I just realized that the damage of holding on to an offense was only hurting me, not the people that offended me. They were fine. They just moved on. They just kept offending other people. And some of you who know me know that I have this like neurological issue, and there's certain things I can remember verbatim, and there's certain things I just forget. It's like this odd dynamic. I either remember or forget completely. And one of the odd things is that I don't remember offenses. Somebody called me about 3 weeks ago that I had not heard from in 10 years. And it's because they ran into somebody who knew me, and they saw my books on the shelf, and they said, I should probably call him and ask for forgiveness. So that person that he was with texted me, said, you're gonna get a call from this person. I thought, that's unusual, I haven't heard from him in a decade. He calls me up, he goes through this long story of asking me for forgiveness for what he did, but I could not remember what he did. You ever had that? It's a wonderful freedom. He's just carrying the burden of what he did, and I don't have any recollection at all. And finally, he just talked so long, I started remembering. And I had to finally say to him, hey, I gotta tell you the truth. If you had not called me, I would have never remembered. I forgot about this 10 years ago. I've lived an entire life in 10 years. You're not on my front burner. He goes, well, I just need to let you know I'm sorry for what I did. I said, hey, I've been good for 10 years. You're the one who caused the offense and didn't ask for forgiveness. That's why you've been carrying it for 10 years. You could have been free of this 10 years ago. And then later I talked to my wife. She goes, oh, I remember when he did that. And then I started remembering it. Going, yeah, he did that. And then strange things started happening. I started remembering more details. Go, oh, yeah, that's right. And I get how you can stay in an offense because it's like touching a wound. And I was flying across the world one time, and I was in an airport, and somebody came up to me, and it was somebody who just left us with a shipwreck. And they hurt people I loved, and they brought a lot of pain to people in my life, and no small amount of pain to me, but it was just so far in the past. And they came up to me at the airport, and they started talking to me, and I could tell they're really nervous. I didn't know why, and then they just started being kind, and then they just like were apologetic. And as they were being apologetic, I felt so uncomfortable, and I said, I'm sorry. It's so good to meet you, and thank you for coming up saying hello. Could you just tell me your name? And when he told me his name, I went, oh. And it was this beautiful thing where I realized I just put this in another space, because you see, some of you, I know you have a big brain, so you have a lot of room to remember every offense in your life. But I have a very small brain, and my brain doesn't have enough room for all the offense in my life. I need to save all my brain space for the future I want to create. And so just forgive and put it behind you, because you cannot put it behind you until you forgive. But nothing will destroy your sight, your clarity, like living an offended life. No offense. It's funny, as I was thinking about my conversation this morning and what the person said to me, I thought, wow, I could have been easily offended. Well, that's right. There's no point. See, people are human, imperfect. Even the people who love you the most are going to get it wrong. They're going to have bad days, and sometimes every day is a bad day. They're going to be short or curt or snarky or sarcastic, and it can cut at you the wrong way. And if you posture yourself to where that person's saying, I'm just going to always believe the best in that person, it'll change the way you relate. So why don't we make 2020 the year where we use the lens of optimism? We choose the lens of opportunity, and we choose the lens of no offense. And say, God, I'm going to be the kind of person who just forgives, who sees the good, who knows that things are going to get better, who believes the best in people. I am so excited about the future because there's a new you coming. And there's a new us coming together. And we're going to do new things that go beyond our wildest imagination. But you cannot have a new year without a new you. And by the way, that's why Jesus came. Because trying to become a new you by yourself, it can be the most exhausting and frustrating process. Because the you that needs to become new is at the very core of your soul, the very core of your being. It's the you that you can't get to. And it's the you that only Jesus can change. And so if you're here and you're ready for a new decade, no, you're ready for a new life. And you know that new life can only come with a new you. I want to invite you to make the first and most important decision of this year, of this decade, by trusting Jesus with your life. There's some of you who need to cross the line of faith. Acknowledge to Jesus that you need his forgiveness, that you long for the freedom only he can bring, that you need his love, you need his hope, you need his joy, his life in you. That's why Jesus stepped into human history, so he could change your future. Would you just bow your heads with me just for a moment and just close your eyes? If you're here in this moment, if you're within the sound of my voice, and you're ready for a new you, I want you to pray this simple prayer, just one sentence, to Jesus right now. Would you pray with me? Jesus, I give you my life. That's it. Just tell him right now. Jesus, I give you my life. Jesus, I give you my life. Jesus, I give you my life. It's not everything you and God need to talk about, but it's where everything begins. Because the moment you give Jesus your life, he puts his life in you. And when Jesus comes to live in you, he creates a new you from the inside out. If you're here in this moment and you just stepped across the line of faith and you just prayed this simple prayer, Jesus, I give you my life, I want to pray for you right now. I want you to mark this moment in eternity. If you just prayed, Jesus, I give you my life, I want you right now, with all the courage and all the faith and all the optimism, I want you to take the opportunity of this moment. I want you to raise your hand and say, yes, I just gave my life to Jesus. Right now, just raise your hand. Let me see you. Jesus, I give you my life right now. Beautiful. Anyone else? Right now, just hold it up high. Let me see you right now. Jesus, beautiful. I give you my life. Anyone else? Jesus, I give you my life. Wonderful. Jesus, I give you my life. Jesus, I give you my life. Wonderful. Father, I thank you for the women and men who in this moment have opened up their lives to you, have crossed the line of faith, have whispered this simple prayer, Jesus, I give you my life. I pray, God, that right now you would just wrap them up in your love, let them know they belong to you, that you will never leave them or abandon them. And God, I pray that today would be the beginning of new things, the beginning of a new year, the beginning of a new decade, the beginning of a new future, the beginning of a new life, the beginning of a new them. God, thank you that you're the God who comes to create the new in us. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Can we just thank God for all those who just responded to him right now? So good. So good. By the way, guys, this is the beginning of a January series called A New You. We're going to take this month and just tackle things that will help you become the new you. And I can tell you that these lenses, they're not just hypothetical. They are the lenses through which I have lived my life. And I can tell you that when you choose optimism and you choose opportunity and when you choose to live a life of no offense, it changes everything. You see so clearly. All that is murky begins to move away. And if I can have better eyesight at 61, imagine what God can do with us when we allow him to allow us to see things through his eyes. The new you is waiting for you. Let's all stand together and sing.